Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. When a narcissist sees you as being too strong, oh, you better believe they're going to try you. They're going to test you. See, narcissists don't attack weakness. They attack power. When they see you rising, walking with your head high, not needing their validation, they panic. Because now they can't control you anymore. Narcissists feel threatened by emotional strength and independence. That's a truth most people don't understand until they've lived through it. You see, a narcissist doesn't just want attention, they want control. Control over how you see yourself, control over your decisions, your emotions, and even your reality. And the moment they sense that you're growing stronger, that you're waking up to your worth, they start to feel that grip slipping. That's when the real battle begins. Because to a narcissist, strength in someone else is a threat to their illusion of superiority. They thrive in environments where people doubt themselves. They operate best in relationships where you're constantly seeking their approval, constantly second-guessing your worth, constantly asking yourself, what did I do wrong? That cycle feeds them. It gives them a sense of power. But when you step out of that cycle, when you stop chasing their validation, when you stop letting their words define your identity, they panic. They see your independence as defiance, not growth. They see your healing as rebellion, not recovery. That's how twisted the dynamic is. Let me tell you something. Narcissists don't just dislike strong people, they can't stand them. Because strong people don't fall for their games. Strong people ask questions. Strong people notice patterns. Strong people set boundaries. And that is what makes a narcissist most uncomfortable. Boundaries. The moment you put up a wall and say no more, that's when they realize they can't use you like they used to. They can't walk all over you. They can't gaslight you into submission. And that realization enrages them. You could have been the most loyal, loving, giving person in their life, but none of that matters the second you become strong enough to say, I won't tolerate this anymore. Suddenly you're the enemy. Suddenly you're selfish, difficult, crazy. They start attacking your character, questioning your motives, accusing you of things you haven't done. Why? Because your strength took away their script. You're no longer playing the role they cast you in. You're no longer the puppet they can control. And that loss of power eats them alive. They might come at you sweet at first, try to pull you back in, try to convince you they've changed, but don't be fooled. That's just the mask. Narcissists are actors, and they'll put on any costume necessary to get their control back. And if kindness doesn't work, they'll flip the script. They'll guilt trip you. They'll remind you of every mistake you ever made. They'll twist your words. They'll isolate you from others, all because your strength made them feel small. See, here's the secret. A narcissist sees the power in you before you do. That's why they targeted you in the first place. They saw your light, your potential, your resilience, but they couldn't stand to see you use it for yourself. So they tried to drain it, control it, own it. And the moment they realize they can't, they'll do whatever they can to destroy what they couldn't possess. That's why emotional strength scares them. It makes you unpredictable. It means you might leave. It means you might not believe their lies anymore. It means you might call them out. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than exposure, because behind all their arrogance is deep, deep insecurity. And strong people expose that just by being who they are. So the next time someone tries to make you feel guilty for growing, for healing, for standing up for yourself, remember this: it's not your strength that's the problem. It's their fear of losing control. Narcissists don't fear weak people. They fear the ones who stop apologizing for their strength. And when you finally start seeing through the manipulation, when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop needing their approval, that's when they realize they've lost you. And not just physically, they've lost your mind, your heart, your attention. And for a narcissist, that's the ultimate defeat. Because they never had love for you, they had control. And once your strength takes that away, they got nothing left. When you rise, they try to sabotage your confidence. That's one of the most subtle yet destructive tactics a narcissist will use when they feel you slipping away from their influence. It doesn't happen all at once. No, it's gradual, calculated, intentional. Because when a narcissist senses that you're leveling up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they don't celebrate with you. They get nervous. They feel threatened. Your growth feels like a personal attack on their control. And so they go into sabotage mode, not by tearing you down openly, but by chipping away at the foundation of your confidence. Bit by bit, piece by piece, it can start with backhanded compliments. You could be doing something amazing, starting a business, hitting personal goals, getting healthier, healing, and they'll say something like, I mean, that's good for you, but don't get ahead of yourself. Or, let's see how long you keep this up. At first, it might seem like harmless teasing, but if you pay close attention, the pattern becomes clear. Their words are designed to plant doubt. They want you to question your progress. They want you to second guess your potential. Because if they can't stop you from rising, they'll try to convince you that you don't deserve to rise in the first place. They might act unimpressed by your accomplishments, pretend not to notice the changes in you, or even shift the conversation back to themselves every time you share something good. Why? Because a narcissist can't stand when the spotlight isn't on them. If you start shining too bright, it highlights their lack. Your elevation makes their stagnation visible. And instead of being inspired by you, they get resentful. That resentment fuels their attempts to sabotage. It shows up in subtle jabs, passive-aggressive comments, sudden coldness, or withdrawing affection when you're doing well, almost like a punishment for being strong. Sometimes the sabotage goes deeper. If they can't make you doubt yourself through words, they'll try to trigger your insecurities. They know your weak spots because you probably trusted them at one point. You let them close. And they stored that information not to protect you, but to use it against you when the time was right. So the moment you start thriving, they'll bring up your past failures. They'll remind you of the times you fell short. They'll question your motives. You're just doing this for attention. You think you're better than everyone now? They'll try to make your growth seem arrogant. They'll twist your progress into pride. That's because your strength shows them what they lack, and instead of owning that, they'll try to poison your confidence with shame. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. If they can't reach your mind through doubt, they'll try to isolate you They'll start influencing the people around you quietly, subtly, so that your support system weakens. They'll plant doubts in others too, hoping someone close to you will echo their narrative. And when that happens, you start feeling alone. You begin to wonder if maybe you are imagining things. That's the goal. Isolation breeds confusion, and confusion weakens confidence. Because when you don't have clarity, when you're always walking on emotional eggshells, you stop trusting yourself. That's how a narcissist breaks your inner compass, not by force, but by manipulation. What makes all of this so damaging is that it often goes unnoticed until it's already working. People around you might not even realize it's happening. On the outside, everything might look fine, but inside, you're doubting yourself more than ever. Even though you're in the strongest phase of your life. That's the mark of narcissistic sabotage. You're winning on paper, but shrinking in your spirit. You're rising, but questioning every step. And that's exactly what they want. To keep you rising just slow enough to never break free. But make no mistake, their efforts to sabotage you are not a reflection of your weakness. They're a confirmation of your strength. Because if you weren't powerful, they wouldn't be trying so hard to bring you down. Narcissists don't waste time on people going nowhere. They target the ones who are going somewhere and doing it without them. They manipulate to regain control over your mindset. That's one of the most calculated moves a narcissist makes when they feel you pulling away. They can sense the shift. You're no longer reacting the way you used to. You're not as emotionally dependent. You're not chasing their approval like before. You're starting to trust your own judgment again, and that's when the alarm bells go off for them. Because a narcissist's power isn't rooted in strength, it's rooted in manipulation. And the battlefield they choose is always your mind. They don't care what's true. They only care about what they can convince you is true. So when they see your confidence growing, your independence forming, they don't try to change themselves. They try to change your perception. Suddenly they start saying things to make you question your memory, your instincts, your values. They twist conversations, rewrite history, and leave you feeling like maybe you're the one who misunderstood. This tactic is often so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening until your self-trust starts crumbling. They'll say things like, you're overreacting, or that's not what I meant, or you always take things the wrong way. Notice how the blame is always shifted back to you. They can lie, disrespect you, invalidate your feelings, but somehow it's always you who's being too sensitive or too emotional. That's how they work their way into your thinking. They want you to constantly doubt yourself so that the only version of reality you believe is the one they hand to you. The manipulation can also come through fake vulnerability. They might suddenly open up, admit to small wrongs, cry, or talk about how broken they are. It looks like progress. It looks like self-awareness. But really, it's just another tactic to reel you back in. They know you're empathetic. They know you care deeply, especially if you've loved them once. So they use that love as leverage. They pretend to be honest just long enough to disarm you. But if you pay close attention, their confessions are carefully crafted. They'll apologize for something small while avoiding the real damage they've done. It's just enough to make you pause your boundaries, but not enough to take accountability. Another tactic they use is triangulation. That's when they bring a third person into the dynamic, maybe someone they compare you to, or someone they claim understands them better. They do this not just to make you jealous, but to put pressure on your identity. If they can convince you that someone else is more supportive, more agreeable, more attractive, then they can make you question whether you're the problem. It's psychological warfare. They're planting seeds of insecurity in your mind while pretending it's just honesty. All of this manipulation is done with one goal in mind: control, because if they can get in your head, they don't need to use force. They don't need to scream or fight. They just let the doubt do the damage. And once that seed of doubt grows, it starts silencing your instincts. You start speaking up. You start wondering if maybe you're the toxic one. That's exactly what they want, to be in charge of the story that plays in your mind even when they're not around. Sometimes the manipulation gets so advanced, they'll even play the role of the victim. They'll flip everything around and say you're the one who hurt them. They'll talk about how they were just trying to love you, how much they gave up for you, how you've changed. And if you're not grounded in your own truth, that story will sound real. You'll start defending yourself, explaining yourself, justifying things you shouldn't have to. And just like that, they're back in control. That's the danger of emotional manipulation. It doesn't come with warning signs or flashing lights. It comes with doubt, confusion, guilt. And the more you try to make sense of it, the deeper you fall into their control. That's why you have to recognize it for what it is. Not a conversation, not a disagreement, not a misunderstanding. It's strategy. It's intentional. And the only way to break free is to stop looking for their logic and start trusting your own truth. They play victim to guilt, trip you into submission. That's one of the most deceptive weapons in a narcissist's arsenal. When they see their usual tactics failing, when you stop reacting, when you stop apologizing for things that weren't your fault, when you begin to stand on your own, they flip the script. Suddenly, they're no longer the one who caused the pain. Now, they're the one experiencing it. The moment they realize they can't dominate you with aggression or manipulation, they try to win you back through guilt. It often starts when you begin creating distance. You stop responding immediately. You stop catering to their emotions at the expense of your own. You stop accepting the blame for everything that goes wrong, and they feel that shift. But instead of taking responsibility, instead of owning their part in the damage, they choose to become the wounded. They'll say things like, I gave you everything, or you've changed, or I guess I was never enough for you. And on the surface, those words sound vulnerable, emotional, even sincere. But in reality, they're not rooted in truth. They're rooted in manipulation. They're designed to make you feel like the villain so that they can regain control without ever having to change. A narcissist knows how to weaponize your empathy. If you have a caring heart, if you genuinely want to do right by people, they'll use that against you because they know you'll stop and second guess yourself. They know guilt can be just as powerful as fear. So when you finally start walking away, when you begin to find peace, they'll show up not with apologies, but with emotional theatrics. They'll tell you how much you hurt them, how lost they are without you, how misunderstood they've always been. They'll cry, reflect, and sometimes even beg. And in that moment, your heart may soften. You may wonder, am I doing the right thing? That doubt is exactly what they're counting on. They won't acknowledge how they disrespected your boundaries. They won't admit to the gaslighting, the silent treatments, the mind games. No, instead they'll remind you of everything they did for you every sacrifice, every effort, every moment that made them look like the perfect partner or friend. But what they're really doing is rewriting the narrative. They're leaving out the abuse, the manipulation, the emotional neglect, and highlighting just enough good to make you question your memory. They want you to feel indebted to them, even after everything they put you through. Some narcissists take it a step further and bring up past wounds of their own. They'll open up about childhood trauma, heartbreak, or mental health struggles, and while those things may be real, they're often used at the wrong time and in the wrong way, not to heal, but to excuse their behavior. They want you to believe that their pain justifies how they treated you, and if you're not careful, that narrative can trap you. You'll start feeling responsible for their healing. You'll convince yourself that if you leave, you're abandoning someone who's already broken. But the truth is, their pain doesn't give them permission to hurt you. And it's not your job to fix someone who refuses to fix themselves. In the end, the Narcissist Victim Act is all about regaining control. It's about making you feel guilty for having boundaries. It's about reversing the roles so that you're the one who ends up apologizing, doubting, and staying. But real accountability doesn't look like guilt trips. It looks like changed behavior. It looks like truth, not performance. And when someone truly loves you, they don't try to control you through pity. They respect your strength, even if it means letting you go. A narcissist, though, they can't handle that. So they disguise control as suffering and hope you fall for it one more time. They try to isolate you from others when they realize they're losing influence over you. Isolation is one of the narcissist's oldest and most effective strategies. It's not just about physical distance, it's about emotional and psychological separation. When a narcissist sees you growing stronger, gaining clarity, and possibly seeking support from others, they feel the threat of exposure. That's when they begin planting seeds of division between you and the people who could help you see the truth. At first, it might come across as concern. They may say things like, "I don't think your friends really care about you," or "your family doesn't understand you like I do." They wrap their manipulation in the language of love. It sounds protective, even thoughtful, but the real intention is control. They want to become the only voice you trust. The more isolated you are, the easier it is for them to distort your reality. When no one else is around to challenge their version of events, their lies become your truth. Sometimes they'll go further and create drama between you and the people you're closest to. They might misrepresent what others have said about you or share private conversations to stir up conflict. And when the fallout happens, they'll be right there to comfort you, pretending to be the only person on your side. This isn't compassion, it's manipulation. They're removing the safety net around you so that you'll have no one to turn to except them. In other cases, the isolation is more passive. They don't directly attack your relationships, but they start withdrawing approval or affection whenever you spend time with others. Suddenly, you feel guilty for having outside connections. You might hear things like, "You always choose them over me," or "I guess I'm not important anymore." It's subtle, but powerful. Over time, you begin to avoid people, not because you don't care about them, but because it's easier than dealing with the emotional consequences the narcissist puts on you afterward. They also use time and energy to isolate you. They'll monopolize your schedule, keep you busy with their problems, needs, or crises, and gradually drain you until you don't have the mental or emotional bandwidth. to connect with others. You find yourself canceling plans, ignoring messages, or just too exhausted to be around anyone else. That's how they isolate you, by making everything revolve around them until there's no room left for your own life. Another layer of this tactic is reputation control. When they sense that you might break free and start telling others the truth, they go into defense mode. They begin spreading rumors, twisting the story, and portraying you as the unstable one. They'll make subtle comments to mutual friends, act like they're concerned about you, or suggest that you're not yourself lately. What they're doing is laying the groundwork so that when you do speak up, people will doubt you. It's a preemptive strike on your credibility, all to protect their image and maintain their narrative. What makes this tactic so damaging is that it works silently. You don't always see the walls closing in until you're already inside. One day you wake up and realize you haven't spoken to your friends in weeks. You feel disconnected from your family. You've stopped doing the things you used to love. You've become so wrapped up in the narcissist world that your own identity starts to fade. That's exactly what they want, because the more disconnected you are from others, the more dependent you become on them, and dependency is their greatest weapon. So when they see you growing strong, finding your voice, reaching out for support, they panic, because strength invites connection, and connection threatens control. A narcissist can't afford to let that happen, so they isolate you, not because they love you, but because they fear losing their grip on you. And they'll do it with a smile, a hug, or even a tear, because that's how quiet and convincing their control can be. They try to provoke you emotionally to make you look unstable. This tactic is a favorite of narcissists because it lets them play the calm, collected one while pushing you to your breaking point. When they sense they're losing power, when your strength starts making it harder for them to control you, they turn to emotional triggers. They poke at your wounds, bring up your past, twist your words, and say just the right things to light a fire in your emotions. But they never do it outright. They know how to mask their aggression as concern, sarcasm, or even humor, so it's not obvious to others what they're really doing. You might be in a calm conversation trying to set a boundary or express your needs, and suddenly they say something that cuts deep. They'll bring up a past mistake, make a cruel joke, or question your character. And the moment you react, whether you raise your voice, cry, or shut down, they step back and play innocent. Wow, I didn't mean it like that, they'll say. Or, you're always so dramatic. They want you to feel ashamed of your emotions while they appear calm and rational in contrast. This isn't about resolving anything. It's about flipping the narrative and painting you as the unstable one. They're masters of timing. A narcissist knows when to strike. Usually when you're already tired, overwhelmed, or vulnerable, that's when their comments sting the most. They'll make it seem like you're always the one causing problems, like your emotional responses are the root of all issues in the relationship. But they won't acknowledge how they pushed you there. They won't take responsibility for the emotional setup they engineered, because to them, your reaction is a tool, a way to discredit your voice, your experience, and ultimately your strength. They'll even do it in front of others. Narcissists love using an audience. They might act sweet and composed in public while subtly needling you until you react. Once you do, they'll shake their head, act embarrassed, or tell others how difficult you are to deal with. Suddenly, you're the problem, and they're the one who has to deal with your moods. It's psychological warfare. it isolates you further, makes you doubt your own emotional responses, and creates the illusion that they're the reasonable one. And when people around you start believing that version of the story, it becomes even harder to trust yourself. Over time, you start suppressing your emotions just to avoid giving them ammunition. You bite your tongue, you walk on eggshells, you pretend things don't bother you, and in doing so, you slowly lose connection with your own feelings. That's exactly what they want. Because a person who's disconnected from their emotions is easier to manipulate. If they can provoke you into silence or shame, they regain the upper hand without ever having to change. Your emotional reactions are not the problem. What's problematic is being constantly pushed to the edge by someone who thrives on your pain. What makes this tactic so toxic is that it turns your humanity into a weakness. It makes you feel like being hurt, angry, or passionate is something to be ashamed of. But let's be clear. There is nothing wrong with feeling deeply. There is nothing wrong with reacting to disrespect. The issue isn't that you're too emotional. The issue is that someone keeps triggering your emotions on purpose and then blaming you for reacting. That is manipulation. That is control. When a narcissist sees that they can no longer control your actions, they try to control how others see you, and they use your emotional reactions as evidence. But don't fall for it. Emotional intelligence isn't about never reacting. It's about recognizing the difference between healthy emotional expression and toxic provocation. And the moment you see the game for what it is, they lose their power, because their greatest fear isn't your anger, it's your clarity. And once you have that, they can't twist the truth anymore.